Hey guys, welcome back. So today's video is going to be a very casual chit chat, repot, separating, chopping some anthurium. I'll be honest, my plant collection has been very neglected these past 2 to 3 weeks because we just had some stuff come up. Work has been really busy and this plant room is so hot to do plant chores in. So I've just kind of let the plant chores pile up a bit. We're just coming off of the tail end of a heat wave. So today is pretty hot. Like I'm already kind of sweating a little bit, but it's not quite as hot as it has been. So this is a good time for me to start chipping away at the plant chores. Like if I do a little bit here, even if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 5 plants I have today, it's 5 less plants I have to do in the future. And I just want to make sure that I protect my relationship with my plants. I don't want to put myself through a grueling marathon of plant chores because I've let it become this insurmountable thing. I just want to chip away at it when I have the time. So that is what we're going to do today. I have 4 definites that I'm going to be repotting / chopping. And then if we have enough substrate and time at the end, I'll do another one, but that one's not quite so urgent. Another reason why I want to do this today is because I want to give enough time before Jean gets back from her holiday, because after that time is going to be when we're going to start planning our next website restock. So I want to make sure any chops that I have maybe have the potential to put out new growth. So for example, if I remove an offset from a plant, I want to see new roots on that offset and like it's starting to push the next leaf. As of right now, we don't have a date set. Jean is still on holiday. I don't want to bother her with this stuff, but I'm guessing it's going to be like early to mid-September. And then for substrate, we are going with a tree fern mixture. It's not the one I've been talking about a lot lately. It's kind of like a slight variation on that. So it's mainly tree fern fiber with DIY pond mixed in. I don't have a ton, I only have this much, which is why we might not get to the big plant at the end. But I mixed this yesterday. I have a lot of tree fern fiber, but I didn't have enough DIY pond, so I threw whatever I had mixed up in here. And then it still wasn't gritty enough, so I just threw in a bunch of orchiata. I'm just showing you what this looks like. It's not as rocky as I have been using, but I think it's not going to be that much different. I wanted to mix more pond, but I couldn't bear the thought of being outside in the sun rinsing rocks. So this is what we're going to work with today. So the first plant I want to work on is a plant that you guys haven't seen for a long time because I've not done the best job with it. It is very juvenile for how long I've had it. I'm coming up to a year. It's a plant that I got from IAS last year and it just hated me for the first part of its life, but here it is. This is a Fairchild crystallinum that I got from NSC Tropicals at the members table at IAS. This is a plant that people were freaking out about because of the price at IAS, and Enid had to go back to the nursery halfway through IAS to get more. So when I got it, it was roughly this size. This is a lot bushier and I'll get to why, but the biggest leaves were maybe around this size, maybe a little bit bigger like this one. So when I brought it home, I potted it into a tree fern soil mix, but it was a sea soil mix that has been really hit or miss with my anthurium, which I have stopped using the sea soil for my indoor plants. It's been hit or miss with some plants, but this was like a massive miss. Like the top growth point died back. I had to repot it into a tree fern pond mix, and it has since popped 4 growth points from auxiliary buds. So I have the opportunity to separate this into 4 different plants, and I want to give it enough time because I'm not 100% sure. This is kind of historically somewhat fragile of a plant, but maybe because of my subpar care. But I want to give it some like chance to establish itself and grow and make sure that I have at least 1 or 2 strong, like stable plants before I sell any. If I look in the pot, I don't see a ton of roots, but there's also a lot of algae because this has been growing inside of a propagation dome, but I see lots of fuzzy roots on the surface of the substrate. Hopefully you can see that. So we will see what we can get out of this. Speaking of IS, people keep asking me if I'm going to be at IS again this year, which would be like in a month's time. And the answer to that is no, I won't be at IS this year. Last year it was so fun and it was like a very incredible experience, and I do want to go back one day, but this year I'm doing something arguably more exciting, which is I'm going back to the motherland. I'm going back to Taiwan, and it's going to be exactly the same time as IS. So there's no possibility I could do both. Okay, I don't see root rot in here. This substrate looks super clean. There's not a ton of roots, but the roots look healthy. Seems like it's been liking the substrate and it's been liking the prop box, which is going to go back into at the end because I don't want it to get all crispy. Since all these little plants are going to be separated from each other, they can't share root resources. It might be possible for me to just pull them apart rather than, yeah, that's probably easier. So this one has come off. This one's actively pushing another leaf. This will probably stall it. It might even abort that leaf, but that's okay. Also, I don't know if this plant has the like flat or wide sinus FTG crystal characteristics because I never grew it big enough to find out. So that's part of why I want to separate this, because I want to see it mature, and it should mature faster growing independently from each other. Okay, this one is super sus. That's the only root it has. Yikes. Okay. I might lose that one, but this one, I think I can see a clear part that I can chop. So I'm just gonna chop it kind of vertically to kind of separate these two. So there's one that looks like it should acclimate okay. And then this one, oops, I accidentally chopped the baby leaf, has the biggest root system. Okay, I'm gonna pot this one up first because it has like no root. I'll probably use like a bit of the old substrate in each of the pots because there's no root rot. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So anyway, I'm really excited to go back to Taiwan. I haven't been there. I was trying to remember when was the last time I went to Taiwan, and it was probably like 2017 or something. It was like definitely a long time before the pandemic. It is unfortunately still quite a hot time to be in Taiwan at the tail end of September, but also Miami would be insanely hot this time of year too. So I don't think it would be any different. It's been so long since I've been there that I think it must have changed so much. And certainly my kind of housing situation in Taiwan is going to be different. So the last time I was there, we still had, or like my family still had an apartment in Taipei, but that has since been sold. And basically like all my family who once lived in Taipei, where I could stay at their places, they all moved to Tainan. And Tainan is in the south. And that's like not a place in Taiwan that I have like very strong connections with. I've been there, but it's not like, you know, there's no nostalgia attached to it, but I definitely want to explore some of it, but I want to make sure we spend enough time in Taiwan. So basically, here's the unfortunate thing. I don't go back often enough where like I don't feel the need to revisit places that I grew up knowing. Every time I go back to Taiwan, I want to like visit the places that I knew in my childhood and just kind of like reminisce a little bit. And so because my visits are so spread apart, I still have that want to do that every time. Whereas I think if I went back more frequently, I would feel more inclined to like visit new places I've never been before. And I guess this time I will do a bit of that. But since I was last in Taiwan, like I feel like a lot of Asia and certainly Taiwan has been seeing more, is getting a little bit more attention, like in a tourist sense. And so I'm already feeling some sort of like FOMO from, am I going to be able to visit those places and like see new things that I've never experienced before, or new developments, new areas that like were previously not tourist attractions but has developed to become a tourist attraction. This little sketchy one is done, by the way. I'm going to great white these after because I want to do it inside of the dome because I don't have enough cups and drainage stuff. I just want to do it directly into that tray. I'm also not doing leca layer on these plants because I generally don't do leca layers for anything smaller than 4 inch. I just find them a little bit of a nuisance when there's so many little pots that have a bit of leca that I have to like separate out when I repot it later. And then in terms of other travel plans, me and my boyfriend are talking about, I don't know when we'll be able to do this, but maybe in the spring, like next year, spring of 2026, do a Europe trip. So we go to UK. We try to go like once every year and a half or so because his family's all there. And the thing about like going to visit family is that like when you go back, you're just like making time to see this auntie, this friend, this relative. And then you don't end up like just exploring. And I feel like the best memories we had was when we went to explore new places on our own. And I find that even though we didn't stay at a lot of places for a very long time in our past travels, like for example, we were in Edinburgh for just a few days one time, but I have like very, very fond memories. Like the most memorable magical times I feel like we had were places we just kind of stopped through but had, you know, nice moments and just caught a nice little glimpse of the place. And even though we were only able to fit a few places in for like a day or 2 days, 3 days, they were very memorable and I feel like just very enriching. Like even though we were only in Iceland for a day, They were just little moments that I think were so magical. So I want to make sure that next time we go back, we factor in a trip to the mainland, to the European mainland. I don't know where exactly personally. Like, I feel like the top of my list is Copenhagen. I don't really know why, but I've never been to Denmark. Of Europe, I've only been to France, Italy, Iceland, UK. That's it. I feel like because I've become more and more a homebody as the time goes on, certainly the pandemic has changed a lot of people into homebodies. I don't love leaving the house and my social battery is very weak. So I think that honestly could be a very ideal kind of trip where we go to visit family and there's like a familiarity there. We have like a home base so we can take trips to Europe. We can explore cities we've never been to before, eat food we never tried before, but then still go back to something very familiar, kind of like as an interim between there and home. And that probably would cut down our travel costs, our like accommodation costs by quite a bit. And speaking of accommodation, when we're in the UK next, I want to make sure that we make the time to explore more of the UK. And specifically, when we're thinking about moving back and like what city we're going to live in, I don't want to live in the middle of nowhere. I want to live ideally on the outskirts of a city so you can have the convenience of having access to things, but not live in the city. And I don't know the UK that well, and I certainly won't be able to spend enough time somewhere to really feel like I know it enough to really envision myself living there. But I do want to do some exploration and just kind of get a feel of the culture-ish there and like what the kind of vibe is like. And one place that always keeps coming up is Bristol, which I feel like can be quite a convenient place to live because it's just across the bridge from Wales. So it's like not, it's a very drivable distance to see his family. It's also a pretty drivable distance from London. It has an airport that goes a lot of places. I've had some people tell me that it's quite a vibrant and like young and dynamic kind of city with a lot of developments coming. And even though it's so easy to fall in the mindset of like romanticizing like a sleepy old town that's just like farmland and stuff, I think the realities of that would probably be a little bit, maybe it would feel like there's not enough stimulation. You're maybe too separated from the world. Because here's the thing, I do romanticize like rural kind of off the grid, but not really off the grid living, where it's just you and scenic landscape and you just don't get bothered by people. But I think the reality of living that, I think there's some things that are to be considered. And part of this is like in the past where I have seen people who very clearly lived, worked, and played in like the same little area of a city, and that little area maybe like has everything they need technically to like fill their needs for their necessities and their entertainment, but it becomes such like this insular like way of life where it's so easy to not see the bigger picture in like the world or even in the community that you live in. Like for example, I used to work in an area called Kitsilano in Vancouver, and it's pretty expensive to live in. And it used to be a lot of like hippies in the 70s and stuff, and used to have a lot of restaurants, but now it's just become like boring big retail like Lululemon, Arc'teryx, like everything that gets built or everything that comes down gets replaced with something very like boring. But it's mainly kind of known for this very like yoga, health-centric kind of lifestyle. And so like people that I would see every day at work, and they were just like, they lived, breathed, everything they knew is Kitsilano. They were so out of touch with what's going on in the world. Like, for example, when Brexit happened, and it was all anyone was talking about for months, but when it actually happened, the day that the referendum results came in and it was a vote to leave, everyone was freaking out. A lot of customers are just like, you know, coming in like separately, but a lot of people are just talking about Brexit. And this woman came in and I know her. I've known her for years, and she just like never leaves this neighborhood. And she was like, "What's Brexit?" And I don't want that to be my life. Like I feel like this is an unintended side effect if you kind of shut yourself away in a place too much. That's why I want to live somewhere close to a city where I can actually go in and experience and be with people, even though I don't love being with people, but I recognize that it's really important to like our cognitive just maintaining our cognitive abilities and just not letting ourselves be so swallowed up by our like immediate surroundings that it becomes like the whole world. Anyway, this one I forgot to show you before I unpotted it. This one is Voldemort itself. It's not looking great. It was in this little pot. This mix, I think this Charmaine's mix, I don't recall repotting it when she gave it to me, but she gave it to me as a stump and it's grown a few leaves, but it's not sizing up and it has quite a healthy root system. Let me see. No rot. There's brown, but that's not rotten. So this is definitely ready to go into a 4-inch. I think I could probably get away with putting in a 5-inch, but I want it to live in my tent. There's no room right now for a 5-inch. So we're just gonna put it into one of these. Just give it some time to stretch its legs. I'm gonna reuse this leca. So lately I've been thinking more and more about how I want my channel to be in the future. I feel like I'm ready to make some changes. I just don't know exactly what the changes are to be, but I do know that I do want to scale back the amount of real estate that my plants take up in my home. And I feel like as I'm making a lot of like smallish changes to our house, like changes within my capabilities, so not like huge renovations that require demolition or anything. But as I'm making these changes, I'm like, I want to redo spaces and have it not be all plants. Like for example, my living room, I have IKEA Visto shelf, like 2 of them, and it kind of takes a whole wall. There's a Russo light there. I feel like it's too much now. I kind of want to get rid of all that. And I kind of just want to like have few plant accents here and there, but mainly this room be my plant room and like where we actually have like a very jungly kind of feeling, but I don't want it to be like so prominent in the rest of my home. And I've snuck in lots of like lifestyle-y kind of videos like mixed in with plants over the last year. And I honestly expected those videos to like not do well at all, but they've done better than I thought they would. So I'm not really sure, like I have so much fun making those videos and kind of, I like to kind of document my journey, like redecorating and like doing things to my home just because it's very enriching for me. I feel like I'm learning a lot. I get to do things with my hands, which I like to do. And it's also somewhat creative. And obviously the video making aspect is also a creative outlet. I haven't decided, so I'm literally just using you guys as a sounding board right now, but I am leaning towards less of like a 99% focus on plants and just maybe more of just my life, things that interest me. And I feel like that is the most motivating for me to make videos. And I will say it is not my personality to be very good at being a content creator. I don't think my personality jives with what I think content creation as a lucrative side hustle or career or whatever. I don't think that that's me. First of all, I really don't like doing sponsorships. You may have noticed that I've done a few in the past, but they have become very few and far between. And I will not do a sponsorship just for the sake of it. I have to really, really like something to do sponsored content for it, which means that I tend to just talk about stuff that's not sponsored because there's very few sponsorships that actually like is what I'm interested in. And that obviously shrinks that pool of sponsors down to like a drop of water because of all the sponsorship opportunities that I'm presented. Either I don't use it or it feels so disingenuous to talk about it because like I would just be a mouthpiece for something that I don't even use or like it's not even really a part of my life. And for me to feel responsible for someone spending money on something that I couldn't genuinely recommend, like I wouldn't just recommend that to my friends in real life, I feel some type of way about it. So for that reason, I don't see this ever being like a very strong part of like my income. So I just kind of want to do what I want to do and have fun making the videos around it. And lately I'm feeling like more of that is going to encompass other things other than plants. So I'm just kind of like putting this out there. I don't have a plan yet. I'm just gonna like marinate on my thoughts for a while and, you know, try something here and there. But if you see changes in my schedule in the future, I'll try not to touch the schedule for now. I did skip a week because Doug got neutered, and he was like recovering from surgery, and I just wanted to spend time with him because he's already quite like he sticks to me a lot, and I didn't want him just following me around the house as I'm doing plant stuff. So I just kind of stayed with him until he was kind of back to his normal energy again. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is I'm not definitely going to cut back on uploading. It's not in my plans as of yet, but I might change up like what I film just because I feel like it. And another thing is that like when it comes to taking care of the plants that I have, I don't know that I have anything new to say. So I feel like it kind of probably gets really repetitive for you guys. Anyways, I just thought I'd throw that out there to kind of plant the seed, and maybe if you have strong thoughts, or even if you have video ideas, because I have been so busy that I have not had time to plan anything lately. So video ideas, honestly, are always welcome. This plant I want to chop. So this is Dark Phoenix by Ralph Lauren and Fort Sherman. It's quite a pretty plant, but it's also a very stemmy plant. I feel like this collar was made because it was so stemmy. So I might even have stem down to like here-ish. So I think we can chop it. And I can actually show you how this collar was constructed. So this is just a piece of plastic, and I cut a slit on the end here and then a slit on the other end, but cut from the opposite end. So this one's cut from the top, this one's cut from the bottom, and it just attaches like that. It doesn't look very nice, but it does the job because I can see that there are roots on the side of this. So when you do go to chop it, you have more roots on top to support the top cutting. Not a ton of roots, but it is some roots. I'm gonna pull this dead petiole off. But I can see a lot of roots in the pot. So this thing just needed to get out of this pot in general. Well, this one had pon on the bottom. Interesting. It must have been when I was out of leca. I will say the collar is more so necessary when you're growing anthurium in like a drier, lower humidity area, because for my plants in my tent, because the humidity is so high, any roots that start out above the substrate will tend to like actually extend down into the substrate, but in ambient they tend to just get stalled. There is so much freaking stem. I really wanted to chop this plant because when it's a baby it is so cute, and like the little dark leaves is very, very pretty. I'm not even 100% sure if I want to do I want to keep the top cutting or the bottom? I'm kind of leaning towards bottom. Or do I even want to keep this plant? I'm also in a very purgy mood and have been in the past month. I want to cut down on the number of plants I have by a lot, and that will have to start with my plant room because this is where the majority of the plants are. Okay, so there's so much stem. It goes from here all the way to here. So as usual, I'm going to just start with the top cutting, and that's going to leave me with not that much stem to chop because there actually is not that much roots on the top. So the roots that are coming out near to the top are not that long yet. So there's this one and this one here. If I want a root system that will mean that the top cutting doesn't suffer for too long, I probably want to include this one too, which is the next root down. So I'm gonna just chop it. Hopefully you can see right here. This is not an amazing root system for the top, but it should be okay. I might even get rid of this leaf. Actually, let's do that. There's an inflow poking out of it, but I'm not really planning to breed this plant. So it's just going to be a one leafer like this. I might sell it like this, you know. It doesn't have a pristine leaf, but if I see new root growth by the time our next restock comes, I might sell this plant and keep a bottom or mid, I guess, because this has been chopped before. So if I'm going to sell it, I don't want to put it in a huge pot because that's just going to take up way too much room in the box. So maybe, will it fit into this? It will technically fit into a 4-inch pot, but it looks so silly. Maybe I'll have to put it into like a tall coffee cup or deli cup situation. Maybe a deli cup. Is this even much different from... Yeah, this is smaller, a little easier to ship. Am I ready to say goodbye to this plant? I think I am, because I think I like my Dark Phoenix more than this cross, even though it's quite pretty. You know what? I'll have a mid cutting to start over with, so we'll sell the top cutting. I could easily make this into a drainage vessel, but I find that it's like not as likely to be reused. I can also see mycorrhizae in this soil, so seems pretty healthy. I'm going to reuse some of it. This one is, I believe, a mix of the Pro Mix Myco Mix and tree fern fiber. And I'll mix in some new stuff too. Get the roots all situated. And I'll just fill it up with more of this stuff. Okay, I think this is good. And then the stem at the bottom, I could probably make this into 2 separate cuttings. It's maybe like almost 2 inches long. So as usual, I just need to locate where the auxiliary buds are and then make sure I include one on each cutting. So there's one on the lower node here. Hopefully you can see this little like reddish pointy thing. And then another one is right here. There's another pointy thing here. So I'm gonna have to cut it slightly on an angle to make sure I avoid cutting, what am I trying to say? Like cutting, I'm gonna cut it on an angle to make sure one is on one side and the other is on the other side. So this one's gonna be on the bottom cutting and I'm just gonna cut above that. I did cut it pretty close on one of them. This one is quite a safe cutting. There's a lot of room on either side of the bud, but on this one, I cut it quite close. I think it can still make a leaf from there, but we'll see. I don't think this can fit. No, this definitely can't fit into a 3-inch pot. I have these 4-inch pots from Jing. Maybe will it fit into here? I don't think so. Not unless I try. Can I squish it into here? Kind of fits. I think I'm gonna squish it into this because it's not really most likely going to root out from these existing roots. So it's probably just gonna kind of work on a new leaf and then maybe root from that new growth. But I don't see these roots growing anymore. And I will have to kind of pot it higher just to make sure that this is exposed to the light. So I can only pot it from here down. I have to do like a very shallow layer of substrate at the bottom because I don't think I'll have enough room for the roots if I put too much in. This root is broken. Again, I'm gonna just toss some of the old substrate in along with some new, because this was not a rotty plant at all, but there seemed to be a lot of healthy microbial activity in there. So I wanna keep some of it. Oh, I broke this root too, dang it. Okay, there's a root at the top. Say goodbye. Okay, just gotta fill up a few gaps and then this one should be done. It doesn't need that much substrate because like I said, I can't fill it to the top. Otherwise I'd be burying the one growth point that I think it has. I think it only has one, just like that. And for anyone who's wondering, I'm going to great white it, but I'm not going to like super drench the substrate. It's gonna go into some sort of dome bin situations that's gonna be high humidity, but I don't want, because it's not gonna take up a lot of water. Because it's in shock from getting cut and there's no foliage to photosynthesize with, it's going to be a lot slower at taking up water. So I just need to dampen it. It doesn't need to be wet and it certainly does not need to be in a reservoir. And then this one, the root system is all on one side. It's a little bit awkward, but I think this will fit just fine. It's a little bit awkward because all the roots on one side of the cutting, so it's kind of sitting at an angle, but the growth point's at the top of that angle, so I think it might actually work out. Okay, this one looks a little bit weird, but it's done too. And I'm not even 100% sure that one's gonna grow a leaf. Okay, so last one, I think, because looking at the size of pot, I need to put the other one into. So I'll just tell you right now, I was going to repot my contaminated Carla. So it's in like is this a 6? No, that's a 7 or 8 inch pot. And I wanted to put it into the huge pot. Oh, you know, you can't see it. The pot that I have the Carla Wu 1 Self in that we repotted a few videos ago. Look at the new leaf. It bounced back from the repot quite well. I wanted to put that plant in that pot, but there's not enough substrate. It was like a massive amount of substrate. So we're gonna focus on the next plant, which is this Diablo Wens. It's a absolute jungle. I wanted to cut it for quite some time. And I'm not 100% sure that I even can. Hold on. There's like pond underneath my foot and it's hurting a lot. I need to clean up some of this before we continue. I'm just putting what I can recycle into a bowl and the rest I'm gonna leave it here to toss later. Okay, as I was saying, the Diablo Wens has a lot of leaves. The internodal spacing on the Diablo Wens is so tight. Like every leaf is kind of next to the leaf after it. So it takes a lot of growth for it to even grow like an inch of stem. So it's not an easy plant to chop, but I noticed that I have put out an offset. So this little leaf here is a brand new leaf, and I can see at the base of the leaf, there's a tiny little caterpillar. So it's already in caterpillar. So I just wanted to take this out and see if it can be separated, as in like that little offset already has new root growth. This plant has been in this pot for quite some time and there's a lot of roots. I've let it dry out a few times and you can definitely see, if you want to see what dry rot looks like, here is dry rot. It's like wrinkly and deflated. All of this is dry rot. Do you see how it looks like someone just let out all the air from a balloon? So I'm just going to remove the substrate, clean up the roots at the very least. And if I can remove this offset, then great. I don't know that the Diablo ones is very popular plant. I don't think it is, but I think the people who are looking for one are like super interested. So fingers crossed that I'm able to remove this, because then I can include it in the next restock. Another reason why I wanted to cut some plants, because I just wanted some variety. So it's not all kind of like the same cross, maybe like different looking specimens, but I wanted more than just seedlings to sell. This root system is intense. It's so thick. Okay, so from that offset, I can see a big fat root. It's this one right here. So it's like maybe 4 inches long. So I think we can safely separate this. But I want to get as much soil off of it as possible because I want to be able to see all the dead root to remove and see if maybe there's even a second root somewhere. For anyone wondering, Diablo Ones is super easy going. There was absolutely no transition period from it going from my tent to ambient. It's been living like next to this ambient shelf here. The only thing I will say is because it's so bushy, you will have to like free new leaves from being like ripped and squashed by other things. So this is a leaf that I didn't, it was growing into another leaf and it ripped itself and I didn't get to it in time. So this kind of thing happens. I would say that's basically been my only challenge with this plant, but it's been really easy. And because the roots are so fat and chunky, it can handle some dryness. I mean, there's a ton of dry rot in here, but I never would have known. This pink right here is the stem for the offset. Here's the root that we want to preserve. And I can see that that is it for the offset, but I do think that this is enough to support that. So I'm going to give you another point of view here. So here's the little caterpillar, here's the root, and we're just going to cut it. If I could do this one-handed, maybe I shouldn't do one-handed, but I'm going to cut it right here at the base. So I'm going to include this little root. If this will cooperate with me, I think I might just cut it part way and then see if this will just come off on its own. There. So this is like somewhat riskier than I would have liked, but there's one leaf, not a ton of stem, I will be honest, but there even is a little pink nipple auxiliary bud. It looks so funny, and a big root. So let's just keep our fingers crossed for this little pup, and then let's pot it up right away because I don't want it to be sitting out in the open. And by the way, I do not callus my cuttings. I have found that it makes very little to no difference, but if you feel safer doing it, by all means. I just got a little bit lazy doing it, and I found that when I wasn't callusing it, plants were rerooting, regrowing just fine. Okay, let's get this little pup potted up right away. This is really awkward because this goes straight down and I really don't want to break this one root. Maybe this will be better. Yeah, I think this will work better. Even though it's massive, I really don't want to break that one root. So we are going to put a little lacquer layer here because it's a little bit bigger of a pot. I don't want so much substrate. There has been a slight break in the root, but I'm just gonna bury it in the substrate and hope for the best. I'm trying to grab the parts of the substrate that are a little bit rockier, a little bit more amended, just to make sure there's lots of drainage, because I tend to like a more rocky mix for my Mexican species, like more amended with bark and pond and stuff like that. For this and clarinervium, I've made it a little bit more drainy. Okay, so it's super wobbly in here because it has one root and a really tiny stem. Should I put it in my tent? I don't think I should put it in ambient. Should I put it in ambient? It's pretty humid and warm in this room though. I don't know if you can tell, but I am sweating. I think the dome might be overkill. I don't know. I just really hope that that small break in the root does not stop it from like regrowing from the tip, but it might branch from farther up, like the unbroken part of the root. Who knows? So I'm gonna inoculate this with great white and then either put it in my tent, which is not as high humidity as a dome, or keep it in ambient. I'm not really sure, but I'm going to make sure it gets plenty of light. And then the mother plant, there's enough stem, I think, to make a cutting, but not a lot of roots up here. So I think I'm just going to give it a little bit of a cleanup and then pot it back. This might be one of those plants I only cut when it pups, which this is the only pup it's ever given me in the last, how long I've had it? 2 years? A year? 2 years. So I'm just pulling off the dead sheath, and I think because I want to bury it a little bit deeper in substrate, since it was a little bit wobbly, I'm going to remove like this leaf from down here. I removed 2 leaves and I'm just going to bury it to here, so that the next time I repot it, I have the option to cut it, but I just don't love the idea of cutting it right now because all of the roots are coming basically out of this part of the stem. There's nothing on the top 80%. And then I'm just gonna go through and chop off anything with dead tips, deflated tips. The root system is so massive that if I cut a little bit of healthy stuff off, that's totally fine. Okay, I think that's good enough. I'm sure there's some like in the core of this thing that I can't see, but I think this is fine. And I do think yeah, no, this needs to be upsized. Okay, this is a 20 centimeter, what's that, 8 inch? 8 inch. I think that's a good size. Bit of a lecalaire. I'm trying to sit the roots as flat as possible so I can bury it a bit deeper. And I think I should be able to get the majority of the stem covered this way. But to circle back to what I was talking about at the beginning of this video, is anyone going to IAS this year? I'm not gonna lie, I will feel a lot of FOMO when it's happening and I will wish that I was there. And I think that has a lot to do with how short my trip was last year and how I felt like there was so much more that I wanted to see, nurseries I wanted to visit. And I feel like it was so chaotic that I didn't get to see a lot of I didn't spend a lot of time in each booth, and I certainly did not have anywhere near the amount of time I had to like visit restaurants and kind of explore the cuisine. So if you are going, please let me know. I would love to live vicariously through you. If you know anyone who's like maybe making videos who's going to IAS, let me know. I haven't seen any like promos like from creators on Instagram yet. So yes, I will definitely feel like I'm missing out, but I am also very happy to be going to Taiwan. I'm going with my sister and my dad, so I'm not bringing my boyfriend this time, but one day I do want to take him to Taiwan, probably in the winter time because it's too much to go in the summer. And this is the only time, like it's not my ideal time to be in Taiwan, but Asian air conditioning is like no joke. It's so strong. So I think I will survive. Okay, it's a little bit wobbly right now, as you can see, because there's no root at the top of the stem. So once it starts to root out, it will stabilize. Also, I did try to self this plant, but it's really hard to tell if it takes because every inflow that it puts out takes months to die off. So I self it and I have to wait like 3 months to see if it even took, but I don't actually think it took. All right, this one is now done, and I think that brings us to the end of this repot because we used this much substrate, so there's very little left. Maybe I can do some seedlings alone off camera. Like I said, I'll be inoculating all these plants with Great White off camera. I'm just gonna put Great White in water, water them through, no fertilizer at the beginning. I just do Great White when I inoculate it and then fertilizer for the next watering after that. But anyway, if you made it this far, thank you so much for joining me for this little hangout session. I love you guys so much and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah!